Welcome to the Scott and Brandon Show, a show where we entertain the pressing biblical, social, and political issues of today. My name is Scott Jackson, and this is my co-host, Brandon Ulmer. Our aim is to have open conversations about serious topics and to build up the body of Christ in the process. If you're interested in theology, applying scriptural principles to our daily lives, or political and social issues as they relate to Christianity, you'll definitely want to tune in. This is the Scott and Brandon Show. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Scott and Brandon Show. My name is Scott Jackson, and I'm joined by my co-host, Brandon Ulmer. And today, we've got an exciting show planned for you. We're diving a little bit more into the political spectrum of things today. We've been theological for a long time, but being that, Brandon, do you want to update our countdown to Inauguration Day, or as you refer to it as Second Christmas?
7 days next week, Trump is president.
There we go. So being that we're so close to Inauguration Day, we're going to talk about kind of what we want Trump to do, probably more specifically during his first 100 days, but also I'm sure we'll discuss some things that we'd like to just see happen in general during the course of his second term. So it's going to be a good show. I think Brandon and I are excited about it. We actually haven't talked about the things that we would like to see Trump do, or the things that we expect to happen within the first 100 days or so, or even just generally speaking across his second term. So I think it's going to be a fun conversation. But before we dive in and before we get started in our subject matter, Brandon, how's life for you? Everything good?
Yeah, we got some sickies here at home. That's to be expected. It is sick season, which winter's always
That's true.
sick season. So yeah, I mean, besides that, everything's pretty good. We're already locking in things that we're planning on doing with friends already for this year. We're already booked out to December.
There you go.
Like activities we're going to be doing and stuff like that, camping with some friends and going to Great Wolf Lodge with some friends as well. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, actually, it's been relatively calm. It's just been the sickness thing. I think that's why it's been calm, because everyone's been sick, because you can't take everybody out when they're sick. So,
right.
I'll throw the question right back at you. What's new on the Scott home front?
Hey, man, not a lot. My son he's in preschool, and he's been off of school for the last, since before Christmas. He was supposed to go back the week after New Year's. So I think that was last week, maybe. Supposed to go back last week. But we ended up getting about 8 inches of snow up here about 2 weeks ago. And then we got another 4 inches last Friday. So, yeah, we've gotten a lot of snow, a lot of ice up here. So, it's been a long time since I've seen snow, 8, 12 inches deep in Ohio. I think it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
we got another chance at a snowstorm. We're supposed to have between 3 to 5 inches. So we'll see.
Hey, there you go.
The odds are right. So
yeah, but my he's excited to go back to school. He's extremely social, so he's ready to get back. And
until he learns that he's actually going to be required to do work.
Yeah. Preschool is all well and good. You get snacks, you get to draw.
Although he could be one of those kids that actually thoroughly enjoys school, which would be super cool.
I think he might be that kid for us. My daughter, I have suspicions that she will not be, but we'll see.
I've been trying to instill that into my kids, the love for learning. It wasn't until I actually went to Liberty that I actually started loving school.
Yeah.
Right, because I had, at that point, I was like 23, something like that, right? I didn't go to college right away, right after high school. I joined the Marine Corps.
Right.
I deployed overseas, right? So going to school at a much older age than the norm, I had a deeper appreciation, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it and loved it. So,
Yeah, that's great.
trying to instill that into my kids. You gotta have this love for learning, man. If you
Yeah.
don't have it, you're just gonna be dumb.
Yeah. Yep.
You know?
Just don't be dumb.
So,
No, but other than that, everything's good over here. We're just hanging out. It's life with toddlers. HVAC is really busy right now, so I've had some long days lately, and it's just the nature of the beast. So my poor wife, she's at home with the 3 kids, and she does a great job. She does a good job. So very fortunate that she's able to take care of the kids and not a stranger, or keep them at a daycare until 6 o'clock at night. So yeah, very excited about that.
Yeah, my wife does the same with 6. So
That's so many kids.
It is a blessing when your wife chooses. This is gonna have to be a podcast episode. Hashtag trad wife versus woke wife or liberal wife. I don't know. I don't know all the different, I guess, identities for moms out there, but work wife, it's do your career and things of that nature, right? But to the woman who chooses to, stay and nurture.
Yeah, stay at home, take care of the kids. Yeah.
I told my wife, if she ever wanted to, she can go back. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It's not that she's locked in, but she chooses, right?
Yeah.
And so it is a very beautiful thing and a blessing.
It is a blessing. Yeah. That might be a fun episode to have our wives on for.
Yeah.
Maybe get their opinions on it. Yeah.
Yeah. A woman who chooses to nurture their children versus, pursue the latest trend of the era, I guess, for women.
Yeah. Well, society will say that they should invest in their career, right? So
their career and stuff like that.
And that children are a burden.
Yeah, you're seeing more women do like these YouTube videos and things, these reels, and they're like, I've seen a few of them where, they're in their 30s or late 30s at least, and they're like, I did it all wrong. Now I want to start a family, but it's hard. It's hard. And just like she said, that they regret pursuing a career over versus pursuing a family.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think we accidentally stumbled upon an interesting episode topic. So I think that would be cool for a future episode.
It would be cool. We'll have to get our wives on. So
yeah, that would be fun. So, all right. Well, without further ado, we will jump into our subject matter for today, which is we're talking about, the episode's called Trump's First 100 Days, What to Expect. So we can maybe, Brandon, we'll maybe start there before we work out broadly what we would like to see happen.
Now, obviously, I have a list of things.
This is like your wish list to Santa for Christmas.
Yeah, and it's not as long as I expected it to be. Maybe because I've just been sick, so I haven't done much of more additional research on things. But I do have a list of things that are definitely right off the top of my head. These things need to be done. Now, these are not in sequential order as far as of importance as we're going back and forth here and talking about these things. They're just listed like, hey, these are things he has to do, right? And the first, right, in my opinion here, man, I'm getting pumped up about it just thinking about it, right? But there is a bill. There is a bill they are already making, right? So Trump can go and negotiate and purchase Greenland the same day he's inaugurated.
Oh, man.
First 100 days, the purchase of Greenland.
Now, tell us why. Because I agree, but tell us why.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, Greenland is so rich in minerals.
Right.
And due to the situation that the Greenland people have with the Dutch, right? It is the Dutch, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Denmark,
Yeah, Denmark. They're prohibited. They're also heavily taxed, right? But they have they're a North American land that has obviously European ties, right? This does create some issues here, but going back to the Greenland people are, say, overly. I don't know how to put it. Maybe I don't want to use. I think the best way, they are overly. I don't want to use the word enslaved, but they're just heavily influenced
Oppressed.
by, but yes, oppressed by the Denmarks, right? I
Sure.
guess the best way to put it. Trying to think about that. Anyways, right? Their taxes suck. They have a ton of minerals that, due to reasons I'm not fully understanding because I haven't dove into it, but they're not allowed to tap into their natural resources,
Yeah.
and as other nations are. And this is absurd.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, why not add a huge, beautiful piece of land,
Yeah.
right? But that is also super rich in natural resources. Holy crap!
Yeah.
That they haven't even touched because they're not allowed to touch.
Right. And I think that's right. I think Greenland's natural resources is a good reason to purchase them. But I think also it provides a strategic
That's another component to it. Yeah.
military operation up there as well, because China and Russia have expanded trade routes through the Arctic. So it's we already have military bases in Greenland, so it would just make sense
Yeah.
to purchase Greenland. And there is some historical precedent for this. I think there's a president in the past. Let me see. A few other presidents have tried to purchase Greenland. Yes, the United States has considered and made several attempts to purchase Greenland from Denmark.
Well, Trump's pretty ambitious because this is his last term.
Yeah, well, it's weird about this term because this feels like a second first term. Like he's not coming in just trying to ride out his second term, right? He's coming in and he's like got a huge agenda that he wants to
Yeah.
enact.
Yeah.
And it will be exciting, I think. I think it'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see some of the stuff that he does. I can't find out what other presidents had tried to purchase Greenland. I was trying to look it up real quick. Should have had that information before I brought it up. But there is some historical precedent for this. This isn't like Trump's one of his like one-off crazy ideas. Like I like, okay, for instance, Canada is the 51st state. That's probably unrealistic. Like that probably won't happen. Now, would Canada benefit from it? Probably. We already finance Canada, and I mean Trudeau has already said that if America pulled all their funding from Canada, that Canada would implode.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a far-fetched idea to do the purchase of Greenland, and I think there's some military advantages to it, and like you said, some natural resource benefits to it.
It would be awesome if we united, brought Canada in. I mean that would be.
I mean, we already defend Canada. We already pay for Canada. We're just letting them live there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah. As far as I was going to say something else about Greenland. Can't remember. It's escaping me. I won't burden the audience with me trying to gather my thoughts. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I'll go back to this. So that's my first one, right? And before you announce what yours is, right? But yeah, purchasing Greenland, maybe as a sub point underneath that, the purchase of Canada, and as a sub point underneath that, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
I actually love that very much. I love it so much.
Did you know what the Mexican president did?
No.
Well, she came out and decided to rename America. Something along those lines. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. I forgot her name. But yeah, she had an idea of her own after Trump said, "Let's rename the Gulf of Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which is really legit. Only a good chunk of the U.S. borders the Gulf of Mexico. So
Yeah, I
why
think it's
not?
like 60 to 65% of the Gulf Coast is on American land. Yeah,
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, let's rename it. It's ours.
right. Right. Well, and like, okay, here's the thing. And this may sound, and this is actually, I think, what I was going to say in regards to Greenland. So this is perfect. The left will say the expanding of America is a very bad thing. And it's not that we're trying to like go in and annex Greenland and do it against their will and
Yeah.
annex Canada. Like there's a whole movement in Canada that wants America to to annex Canada. So it's not entirely unpopular up there. There is quite a few people in Canada who would like them to be annexed by the United States. So it's not like America's doing this to be this heavy-handed imperial presence in the world. But the expanding of America, I mean, America for generations has been the picture of freedom. They've been the symbol of freedom and freedom of speech. And I think expanding that throughout the world and making America's presence larger is a good thing. Plus, the left just doesn't care about anything in regards to national security. So I think Greenland could potentially be a national security measure. But the Gulf of America, I will never call it anything different. But like it seems trivial and it seems funny and it seems silly. And it's like, oh, that's just something that Trump said out of the whatever, But I don't think it's wrong. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And now, is that like a major administration priority for me? Probably not. But
Well, I think it's. I mean, no, this is small potato stuff, and like I said, it's as I name stuff off on my list, it's not a sequential order of importance. Right? It's just something. But I do think there is a importance in the sense of there needs to be this expansionism and not obviously imperialism, but expanding America to continue be that strategic country that is the number one in military might, the economy, right? That needs to continue because hegemony is certainly under a threat.
Yeah,
coming from the east, and that is not to be taken lightly. And so, by all means, I think anything that's going to instill and make America look great, be great, and to instill patriotism and love of the country. Yeah, I think renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America can have bigger implications than maybe we're aware of.
Yeah. I think that would be good. On a little bit more of a comedic note, I was listening to the Ben Shapiro show the other day, and I think it was right after Trump gave that big press conference in Mar-a-Lago. But he was describing this new map under Trump. And have you seen it? Have you seen pictures of it? Okay. No. So it's got like a map of North America and the Atlantic Ocean, and Greenland's in this picture. So Greenland has been renamed Trump Land. And the Atlantic Ocean has been renamed the Anti-European Moat. And Canada is renamed the 51st state. Mexico has been renamed the Other Side of the Wall. And obviously the Gulf of America is in there as well. So I just thought it was funny. I'll have to find a picture of it and put it in the show notes. I'll link anybody to it who wants to see it, because I couldn't find it to share it on the screen right now. So
yeah, absolutely.
It was funny. But so for me, I guess we'll stay on the kind of the foreign policy vein here. I would like to see Trump's administration retake control of the Panama Canal.
Yeah, see, this is less likely of happening, but
I think it is, but
I
I
have
think it's necessary. I actually think it's a little bit more urgent than purchasing Greenland. And the reason why is because of China's influence in the Panama Canal right now. So as it sits right now, Chinese companies own both ends of the canal. So that they own the ports at both ends. So if the CCP wanted to, they could just completely shut down trade through there for whoever they want. In America, 60% of our trade goes through there. So 60% of our shipping goes through the Panama Canal, which is a sizable amount. They could completely cripple the American economy if they wanted to.
Yeah.
So a little bit less funny than what we discussed with Greenland. But I do think either retaking control of the Panama Canal or working out something with Panama to where China doesn't have full control over each end of the canal. Now, it's not that the Chinese government has control. So I don't want to misstate that here. It's Chinese owned companies.
Yeah.
But anybody who's been around China for any amount of time knows the CCP has influence over everybody.
Yeah. So that is a very interesting point, but I think you're not the first to. I've seen commentators talk about this, and things. And again, I didn't pay too much attention to it, so there's no way. But
well, and Trump has talked about this as well. He talked about it in his press conference a few days ago.
Yeah.
The importance of either retaking control of the Panama Canal or working out a deal with Panama to where there's no other countries involved other than Panama. So it's, I do think it's a relatively serious issue just because of China's influence in the Panama Canal
issue now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Issue.
Absolutely.
It makes me always wonder if Americans realize how close we are. China just recently unveiled their new carrier. They dropped. Thing is massive. Latest technology, plus their sixth generation fighter jet they ever built as well. Which, if that doesn't put things into perspective here, the U.S. has a fifth generation fighter jet. Now, you can be one that says, "Hell, hey, U.S. probably it's already at the 10th generation of fighter jets. We just haven't released it yet." Yeah. And that very well could be, but again, no one knows, right? Yeah. But as of now, public information, the U.S. has a fifth generation fighter jet. China now has a sixth generation fighter jet. How good is it? Obviously, that is to be speculated on, right? Yeah. Now, also look at Russia. Russia has a hypersonic missile.
Right.
There's nothing that the U.S. has that can stop that. Our air defense system, as good as it is, will not stop because we don't even have a hypersonic missile yet.
Right. Not that we're aware of.
Yeah, at least, again, not that we're aware of. But you can see maintaining the edge, as we would say in the military when I was in, was always to maintain the latest in, just from anything basic to what we wore, camouflage. That was the latest in the camouflage, right? The latest in our weapon systems, the latest in technology, our night visions, PVS-14s, all those different types of stuff, right? You want the latest.
Yeah.
If you don't have the latest, it's not going to give you the edge. And right now, we've got two countries that have the edge on us right now.
Yeah, and that
areas, so not everything. But
yeah, that actually brings up another point that I think is I would like to see Trump do, and I think he will because he did it in his first term. I didn't have this on my list, but it's the building up of America's military again. He had to rebuild it up after Barack Obama, and he did it in his first term. And I think he did a good job, but also de-woking the military as well.
Yeah, it's going to take Pete Hegseth to get in there.
Yeah. Which actually I did hear the other day that all of Trump's cabinet appointments should have enough votes to get through.
That's good.
Yeah. So I think they will potentially be voting on them this week. So this could be a pretty consequential week in American politics. I would like to see Pete Hegseth get in. Obviously, RFK is. I think he's going to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Tulsi Gabbard, I think she's going to be the National Intelligence Director. So those are probably the most contentious picks that
Well,
are going to have a hard time getting in.
yeah, and hopefully they get them in faster than we anticipate, and not drag out the process.
Yeah. Well,
But have you noticed? Even Mark Zuckerberg came out the other day, apparently on Joe Rogan's podcast, and has boldly claimed, yeah, they were censoring due to government pressure.
I haven't heard about this. No.
Yeah. So, but it is interesting. Anyways, that you're seeing these companies, right? I think soon you'll see it with the federal government,
Yeah.
right? Uh, getting rid of their DEI programs,
Right.
but companies are announcing, these private companies like
That's been
Facebook,
happening on a corporate level, like
it is
crazy.
it's like we are dropping DEI.
Yeah. I think the biggest one most recently was McDonald's.
I thought it was Facebook, but
Well, yeah, Facebook's actually probably more recent than McDonald's, but yeah, McDonald's came out and said that they're discontinuing their DEI practice, and they actually required all of their suppliers to practice DEI as well. So if you were somebody supplying food or materials or restaurant equipment to McDonald's on a regular basis, you also had to practice DEI.
Yeah.
So that was in their contract with these suppliers. But now McDonald's has come out and said we're not doing that anymore. So
it kills the bank. It really does.
Yeah. And that's something that I'm actually really excited to see happening even before Trump gets in, because I do think it's a crystal clear picture of just how manipulative and heavy-handed the Biden administration has been, especially in the private sector.
So, the federal government is right now at this point DEI focused, but obviously that's expected to change here.
Yeah, I would expect it to change. Yeah.
So,
all right. So we've covered Greenland, we've covered the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
Briefly covered the 51st state. So, Brandon, what's the next one on your list?
The next one that I think is very, very important and is a matter of national security is the end to the Ukraine-Russia war.
Yeah.
I don't know how Trump's going to do this. This is becoming trickier by the day. Where I wouldn't say had not Biden authorized the launch of our ATACMS into Russia, maybe this would be a little easier to negotiate, but I don't think it would have. I really don't. The ATACMS didn't impact anything.
Yeah.
And this is why, right? And we've seen, for anybody who's watched, right, we've seen Tucker Carlson. He's interviewed Lavrov. He's interviewed Putin, right? They've talked about on different podcasts, right, the warmongers who've existed since, who've been heavily influenced by the Cold War, who still exist in places of power, right, within the federal government, who are the ones who've been around since the 90s, offering their advice to every president who's come through, from Bill Clinton all the way up to even Donald Trump. Right, they've been the same jokers that have been offering their advice.
Right,
and they have this mentality that Russia needs to be put in a corner. Russia needs to be put into a corner. U.S. must come out on top. We must break Russia, type thing. And that's just, I think that's an old mentality. I've been listening to all these podcasters and these geopolitical analysts talk about that. They're like, it hasn't worked. It's just drug everything out. Whether or not that's 100% true or not is still to be debated, but I do think there is certainly a argument on their side to say, hey, this mentality that you've done post-Cold War for primacy is not working, right? Russia has made it very clear that their red line is this: Ukraine will not be a part of NATO. Period. End of story. That is the red line.
Yeah.
And the only way to end this war is to say Ukraine will not be a part of NATO. Now, there is a article I read about maybe a week or two ago, and it hasn't been confirmed. And it's coming out apparently of the Trump, administration that's about to step in. And in this article, Lavrov is talking, who is the foreign defense minister for Russia. And, saying that, we've heard of rumors and so forth here that the Trump administration is floating out an idea. Again, receiving the same advice from the advisors post-Cold War, so from that are still there. Trump needs to get rid of those guys. That's bottom line. He needs to get rid of these warmongers.
Yeah, I expect him to clean house pretty quickly.
This post-Cold War model mindset, he needs to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Right? But anyways, in this, that apparently it's being floated under the Trump administration planners that once Trump gets in, they will make a deal that Ukraine will not be allowed to join NATO for the next 20 years. Thus, having a quote unquote peace treaty, or more like a ceasefire for the next 20 years.
Yeah, that would just postpone the current situation for 20 years. Yeah.
Lavrov said it's not going to work with us.
Well, I doubt Putin will even agree to that, because he's like, well, what do I do in 20 years? Because Putin doesn't plan on leaving. So, I know there's been reports that he's terminally ill and such, but I mean, Russia's next leader, even after Putin, say Putin doesn't survive or live the next 20 years, which I'm not wishing that on Putin or anything by any means, but, just hypothetically, just thinking in advance, like if Putin doesn't make it the next 20 years, Russia's next leader probably will be within the same vein. I mean, it just stands to reason to assume that. So I think we're just delaying the inevitable by doing that. It will be really interesting to see how Trump handles the Ukraine-Russia conflict, because I do think it is something that needs to be ended. It is something that needs to be resolved, and it's something that Trump has said that he would. The path is that Trump forces Ukraine and Russia both to the table, or he tells Ukraine that we will fund you sufficient enough to where Putin can't stroll through Kyiv. I think, then try to twist Russia's arm to the negotiating table. So
I think we need to stop sending arms and weapons and money supplies to Ukraine.
I was going to ask you your thoughts on that. Your thoughts on continuing to fund Ukraine. Yeah,
it needs to stop. One, because we are giving so much to a wasted, losing war. Ukraine is going to lose. It's just the question is when. Ukraine
was always going to lose, and that was the thing. They were always going to lose,
and we are using them to fight our proxy war. That's very.
This is essentially a U.S.-Russia war through Ukraine. Yeah,
and honestly, it's just dragging out and wasting tons of taxpayers' dollars. People are over there dying for no reason.
I agree.
Ukraine is going to lose unless Trump brings them to the table and says this: Ukraine will not be a part of NATO. Period. Their story. Ukraine can continue on how it is. They're going to have to work out some of the deals with the territories, because obviously stuff has been annexed. By both sides. But that's just what it's going to boil down to.
Yeah.
I don't know how Trump wants to not only expand America, but he also wants to expand. I will say, capitalism and freedom and so forth. There, right? So he does want to, I would say, expand NATO. Right? And by adding Ukraine to NATO would certainly expand it.
Yeah, I actually don't know Trump's opinion on NATO as an organization. Me personally, like NATO and the United Nations, I'm not a huge fan of America's participation in. But America's...
it was developed post-Cold War, or during the Cold War, right? And so it still has that, NATO still has that Cold War mentality, and I think that needs to shift.
Yeah.
It needs to shift. And once this Ukraine thing is done with Russia, I think Russia's just going to go back. They're not.
Yeah.
Russia, they want to restore Russia to its former glory, but there is this, they don't have, I would say, maybe the same ambition or drive that they did, post World War II.
Yeah, I mean, Putin's been very clear that he wants to sort of resurrect the USSR, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we know his intentions with all of this, but we also know that the only reason there's two reasons he invaded Ukraine. One is because of the threat of Ukraine being a NATO addition. The second one is because he knew Joe Biden wouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So the only times that Putin has invaded or annexed pieces of land that wasn't Russia is under Obama
Yep.
and under Biden. He didn't do it under Trump for good reason, right? So, and I think this whole notion that, you know, the libs will give Trump a hard time for mentioning that he had a decent relationship with Vladimir Putin. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
No, it's not.
I think you need to have decent relationships with these people, but a decent relationship doesn't imply that you guys are like buddy buddy and you go hang out and go to the movies together. It just implies that you have a mutual respect for one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I do think Trump or Russia needs to be handled with a certain amount of I don't want to say, how do I say this? There needs to be a certain amount of care taken with Russia, and we have to acknowledge the fact that they are a world power today. You know, maybe not as large as China, or certainly not as large or influential as the United States, but I mean, Russia's on the move, and they've got ambitions, and they've got plans, and they've got goals for the country long term. And you know, they told you what they want to get back to. They want to get back to the Soviet Union. So yeah, I think it's an interesting situation. It's certainly a delicate situation over there. I don't want to be insensitive to the conflict, but I do agree with you. I think America needs to probably pull the funding if there isn't an actual end in sight, like an actual goal. Like Biden has been funding Ukraine in this whole conflict and basically saying like, yeah, just let us know when you're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are we sending billions of dollars with a B over there with no end in sight? Like, why are we just shipping money over there with no end goal? So that's a big thing for me. Yeah, and I think there's lots of problems that America has, and I think there's lots of suffering going on in America right now. That needs to be dealt with, that isn't being dealt with because we're sending money over to Ukraine. So,
No.
yeah.
So that's be my second one right there. In that war, I don't know how he's going to do it. It is a very tricky, very delicate situation, but it's got to stop, and we got to stop sending support to the Ukraine. It's just got to end. So I now pass it on to you, Scott. What is your next?
Yeah, so sorry, I had myself muted there. Yeah, the next one on my list was I guess less for, well, I guess I should have mentioned this. We're talking about Greenland and Mexico and all this stuff, but I think the wall needs to be built, and I think the deportations of at least violent criminals needs to start as well within the first 100 days. And I think that's the plan.
Yeah, it's a day one.
So that's certainly, I think, a big issue. So we don't have to spend too much time on that. Obviously, that was a big campaign issue for Trump. Go ahead.
I do love his border czar's comment when he's being interviewed by, I don't know which leftist reporters organization, and they're like, the lady proposes the question: is there any way that families will not be split up?
Yeah.
In a deportation process? And he was like, yeah, sure there is. Families can be deported together.
Yeah. Well, I do love JD Vance's response to this question because he, like, there's a few, I think it was during the election, a reporter asked him if families would be separated, and he said, well, yeah, they will be. And he's like, do we separate people from their fathers or their mothers if their father or mother is a criminal and they go to prison? Like, they don't take their kids with them to prison.
Yeah.
So the families are separated all the time. It's just it, they're using this kind of faux quasi emotional aspect of the immigration issue to nullify the problem, which the problem is we have drugs coming in through the southern border like no other. We have criminals coming in through the southern border like no other. We've arrested known terrorists coming through the southern border. So there's a huge problem down there, and I think that needs to be dealt with, and I anticipate that it will be. So that was obvious. It's something that we hadn't mentioned yet, but I figured I would throw it out there. So we don't have to spend a ton of time on that. So Brandon, you're welcome to throw out your next one.
My next one. So the border was actually on mine. I did have that, so that needs to obviously be done. The next is going to be. This can lead to a lot of different things, but if anybody who's listened to me, obviously, I'm a big Middle East guy. I pay attention to what's going on in the Middle East. It is a huge concern, obviously, with recently the collapse of Syria, right? Assad is in Russia. That has obviously been confirmed, right? But now we have this vacuum that's been created in Syria.
Yeah.
And now countries are racing for it, specifically Turkey. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Turkey is becoming more and more of a threat, but because of its partnership and membership in NATO, it gives it a free pass, right? And so there are geopolitical issues that are now arising. And so what Trump needs to do is he needs to secure Turkey. He needs to restrict Turkey, right? Turkey is now rushing into Syria, and they've taken a good chunk of Syria, and they plan to take more of Syria, which puts no longer a moderate Islamic nation, but actually becoming more of a radical Islamic nation on the border with Israel. All right. Not only Turkey is due to the destabilization of Syria, Iran has lost and has continued to lose hegemony in the Middle East. That is no question about that. But Turkey is now seeking to gain that which Iran has lost, and they are doing a phenomenal job at that. Even with their ambitions to pursue nuclear power on their weapon systems.
Yeah.
So this is certainly a very important issue. And how you reign in Turkey and slow down Turkey is going to be of another challenge for Trump, right? I'm sure he's up to obviously the challenge, but just as fragile as the Ukraine-Russia war is, so is this issue with Turkey.
Yeah.
And this can certainly lead to grave situations, even the potential of a clash between Israel and Turkey, which would be interesting because that's two NATO members.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how the United States would handle that, also how NATO would handle that as an organization. And I do think the issue with Turkey is one that's maybe flying under the radar right now. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Yeah,
not enough people are paying attention to it, and I mean, even I obviously come from a biblical perspective. I certainly believe that this has huge biblical implications to it, and even prophecies. But leaving that aside, right there, this certainly does pose a threat to Israel. You have President Recep Erdogan, right, who is the current president of Turkey, who has said multiple times he is going to restore the Ottoman Empire, right? But our listeners are not aware of, right? The Ottoman Empire ended in 1923 in Turkey. It was Turkish.
Yeah.
Right? And so, matter of fact, President Recep Erdogan refers to it as the Neo-Ottoman Empire. So he has every ambition to reestablish, just like Russia wants to restore Russia to its former glory. You have a guy in Turkey, President Recep Erdogan, who plans on doing the exact same thing, and he's made huge, significant advances on it. Now he's coming up on an election cycle here. Erdogan is, and so we'll see if he's able to hold it. So that'll be interesting to watch and see. But Turkey is certainly making huge strategic movements that is playing an impact and reshaping the Middle East to come out as the world leader of Muslim nations in the Middle East. and this is very concerning.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. So, yeah, definitely a good point to discuss. Turkey's not a. It's not like when people think of conflict over in the Middle East, Turkey doesn't generally come to mind because there's some other stuff going on at the moment. You know, you've got Iran, it's a big one, Syria, Israel, obviously, right? So, yeah, I do think it's something to watch. I'm curious to see how Trump navigates that situation. But traditionally speaking, his foreign policy has been pretty spot on. So I'm excited to see how he handles all of those situations. He's definitely coming in now, I think, with more tension and conflicts
Yeah,
geopolitically than he did the first time.
a very fragile, I wouldn't say just economy, but a very fragile
Yes, I would agree.
Social
Yeah.
construct.
Yeah.
Right. It's fragile.
Yeah, so it will be interesting to see how Trump navigates all of that. I'm excited to see his policies on that and see where things line up. I guess certainly can't be any worse than what the current administration that we have. So if anything, I think it'll be much better. The next couple things I have on my list are more so like, I guess, financially motivated. I would like to see Trump make his tax cuts that he made in his first term permanent, because they are set to expire. I think they were set to expire later this year. So they will. I'm assuming he'll re-up those, and he can make those permanent. He's talked about that. So I think doing that and also lowering the corporate tax rate. I'm sorry, what did you say, Brandon? I didn't hear what you said.
Lowering the corporate tax.
Yeah, lowering the corporate tax to make it easier for businesses to do business in America. I think would also be a big one. So, don't know if you have any thoughts on that or not, but you're welcome to chime in.
I would love to see for people who collect tips those are no longer taxed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you work overtime, that your overtime is no more taxed.
Yeah. Well, right? And I think bonuses also is in that. So if you get a bonus, bonuses won't be taxed as well.
That would be great because I got a bonus last year, and man, I think I was like, oh wow, that's what I get after taxes. It was way less. So I was
get like 50, maybe 50% of it.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. I think bonuses, tips, and overtime are all things that he's floated. And actually, I don't actually think this will happen, but if it does, I would vote for Trump for a third term. I don't know if it was a joke, but he did float the idea on Joe Rogan of abolishing the income tax. So if he did that, he'd probably, if this was his first term and he did it, he would win 50 states on his second term. But that would be interesting. That's more of like a thing that I think about in the back of my mind. I don't actually think it'll happen, but it would be really cool.
It would be real.
It would be really cool. But the overtime, the bonuses, those two things affect me personally.
I'm sure they do.
Because I'm in a service-based industry, so working overtime is a pretty regular deal for me. And getting taxed on that, it's like, man, if I work anything over 48 hours, it's almost not worth it because the amount of taxes that comes out is just it's like if I only worked 40 hours, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like my overtime basically paid for my taxes and I get my regular paycheck. So
that's just sad. Like, it shouldn't be so heavily taxed.
Well, and his reason for it, which I actually agree with, is he doesn't want American workers to be punished for going above and beyond and for working hard and for making a living. And he wants to promote work in the United States, which I agree with. Like, people today just don't want to work anymore. That's a hard time with us finding employees is, we'll hire people and they'll tell us one of two things. I only want to do this one specific aspect of HVAC and I don't want to do anything else. Or I want to make $30 an hour and I have 0 days experience. So finding people, like, people know you can make money in the trades and you can make good money in the trades, which is true. You can. But you have people coming fresh out of tech school or want to find an apprenticeship, and all they want is the fat paycheck without the experience. And yeah, it's no one wants to work anymore. So, finding ways to reward the American workers and the American employees, I think, is a good thing. But generally speaking, the biggest thing that I would like to see Trump's administration do is exactly how they campaigned, is just put America first for once, please. American workers, American businesses, small businesses in America, small businesses, which is, I think, technically defined as anything under $10 million a year in revenue. I think they make up 60% of the American economy. I work for a small business. Small businesses have struggled under the Biden administration. COVID put a ton of them under, and then the Biden administration just added insult to injury, right? So I would like to see Trump's administration put America first, actually care about the things that Americans care about, actually take into consideration the concerns of Americans, and I think they will. So that's probably what I'm most excited to see. It sounds a little selfish, especially if there's anybody else out in the world that's listening to this. But to have the leader of your country not prioritize its citizens is ludicrous to me, which is what we've had for the last 4 years.
Yeah. So, no, I would certainly agree with you. Yeah, let's fix our economy. Drop those, right, tax cuts, and you're not getting taxed on your bonuses, your overtime, things like that. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
right?
All for it.
I'm all for it, and that's just gonna be better for Americans. It's gonna be better for America, and all in general, people are gonna collect more of their hard-earned money. So by all means.
I don't know why that's so difficult. Like, why do we have to give up 30, 40, 50% of our paycheck to the federal government? It's unreal. Like, if you want to do an income tax, like I'm not totally anti-income tax, but do like a flat tax across the board. Like, don't tier it based on how much money you make, because then it doesn't, like, I have no motivation to make more money and do better for myself, because then I'll jump up in a tax bracket and I'll just be back at the same amount of money that I was making before. So make a flat tax. Like, I think Ben Carson in 2016, when he was running, he floated a flat tax based on tithing, and it was 10% across the board. Everybody pays 10% income tax. That's it. And we're not doing this 30, 35, 40% income tax on people. We'll do a flat 10% income tax, and that will be sufficient. And I was like, you know what? I can get behind that. That seems reasonable. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not totally unreasonable, but when the other side is being unreasonable, saying like, hey, we want to tax you for half of your money that you make, then it makes me unreasonable. And I'm like, well, I don't want to pay taxes at all. None of them. So, taxes is an issue that I've thought about quite a bit, and I get very frustrated about it if I think about it for too long.
I'm like, when I look at my paycheck,
it's disgusting. It's disgusting. I don't even look at my gross pay anymore. I don't even look at it anymore, because the amount that I lose in taxes, I don't even want to think about.
Oh, no.
Like, my little brother works at the same company I do, and he often works with me. So me and him are 7 years apart. I'll be 27 this year. He's 20. So he was telling me the amount of money he's made this year and the amount of money he's paid in income tax this year. And I make significantly more money than he does, just because, I've been here for 9 years. I'm our senior technician at work. So just different position is all. And I was like, dude, I have paid, like, the amount you've made all year is the amount I've paid in income tax all year. It's ridiculous. It's unreal.
He's just a kid who's thinking, oh, I'm making some money.
I know. Which is great. But
hey,
it's,
at least he wants to work, right?
Yeah. He's not sometimes, but man, that's about all that I had on my list. Those are probably the biggest priorities for me. Do you have anything else to discuss?
Well, I know we got a few minutes. I got 7 minutes left. So China.
Okay.
All right, China, and I know we got listeners in China, which I don't know how that's happening, but that's really cool, by the way. But anyways, China is a they're a military threat. They're an economic threat. They are. And this recent showing, promotion, televising their military might and strength,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
with their latest weaponry, and it is a show of force. This is exactly what it is, and all countries and nations do it. We do it, show of force, and but this ambition to over Taiwan is another red line.
Yep.
It is another red line. And I've listened to some very experts in the field, geopolitical analysts. I forgot the one guy named Jeff, who's a political analyst. Jeff, he was on with Tucker Carlson. Brilliant mind. I do enjoy listening to him. He doesn't think that China will go after Taiwan. Or maybe he does, but that nothing's going to come. There, no war is going to come in between the U.S. and China.
Yeah.
And I hope he's right. I hope he is right in regards to that. Taiwan is a red line for us as well.
Yep.
So I don't know how you rein in and you control China. I know, yes, you can use tariffs, all that type of stuff as well, which they could do as well. But China's not slowing down their military ambition. They are not, which means we need to ramp up our military ambition as well. And it's been put out there that China plans on invading and attacking Taiwan either by or right before year 2027, which is now less than 2 years out. So if that is actually accurate and true, right, we have less than 2 years before a major war.
I don't think China invades Taiwan under a Trump administration.
No, I think they have been deterred, but that deterrence is only for 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So their 2027 plan of invading Taiwan, I think it does depend on who wins the White House in 2028. So it will be, it'll be interesting to see. But I totally agree with you. I think America needs to deal with China appropriately, and handle them with the amount of respect that they probably garner. So, it'll be interesting.
He's got to come up with that to regulate and rein in China. My other issue here, obviously, is the Israel-Gaza war.
Yeah.
Those hostages, he's already said numerous times that they're not released by day one, which is next week. It's going to be all hell for them. All hell's going to break loose. I don't know what that exactly means or what that's going to look like. I got a feeling it's not going to look good at all. And I can see, which would be interesting if he does. If he's talking about special forces, utilizing special forces assets, things like that, that's going to be really interesting because now we have U.S. troops fighting the Israel-Gaza war.
Yeah.
And that takes on a new role and characteristics. Doesn't mean we're going to have troops that are permanently on the ground, invasion force, things like that.
Yeah.
Right? Because, special ops is, its own thing, right? Separate from the conventional military.
Right.
But still, that is interesting enough. But yeah, this Israel-Gaza war needs to end. Doesn't need to end with a two-state solution. Yeah, I know, you've already talked about that. Two-state solution's not going to work.
Well, neither side wants that.
They've already tried it before. It's not going to work. I don't know. But in conjunction with that, right, the Abraham Accords needs to be reignited. Right? It was in the process. Israel was starting to establish good relationships with these countries that it hasn't had.
Well, and Saudi Arabia was about to sign the Abraham Accords as well.
Yeah, due to the Abraham Accords. That needs to be reignited. And again, I would love to see all this in his first 100 days, whether or not he gets to it. I think he has obviously the capability, the stamina, the vitality, because he's put together a great team already.
Yeah, I agree.
All of these issues within his first 100 days.
Yep.
I think is totally possible. But it is certainly going to be interesting in how he handles some of these dicier scenarios that are right now currently in play.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Man, that's all good stuff. The Israel-Gaza war right now, it does feel like a U.S. war with Iran by proxy.
Mhm.
It is similar to the Ukraine-Russia war in that aspect, but I do think that the war with Israel against the rest of the Middle East needs to end. And I'm curious. I don't know how Trump is going to. That one seems more complicated to me than the Ukraine conflict.
It does. And again, right, Israel also has the same type of warmongers as the U.S. And theirs is obviously, instead of directed toward Russia, it's directed toward Iran.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this certainly can spill over
Yeah,
into
it
the
can.
Middle East conflict. And that needs to also, I don't know, do you allow Israel to do that, which obviously would entail U.S. involvement,
Yeah.
back Iran?
Yeah.
The majority of Iranians do not want this. All right, it is
Right.
obviously regime, the Ayatollah,
Right.
right, regime, the Ayatollahs there. That is the issue. So I don't know. That's another dicey situation.
It is.
Waters.
It is. Totally agree with that. But man, just as we're closing out here, I think something like, that I would just like to mention is, we're talking about all the stuff that we want to see happen, and we're talking very politically right now. But the reality remains the same, that God is still sovereign over everything that happens in the world. Nothing happens that he's not aware of. God is more intimately aware of the foreign policy situations and situations going on in America than we are. And God is obviously sovereign over all of them. Nothing happens without his authority. So that's something. Yeah, that's something that just helps me keep my sanity when discussing these issues, right? Because it's very easy to run down the rabbit hole and to get all worked up. Like, well, what if China does this, and what if Russia does this, and what if Iran does this, and what if America does this, and this could be a dumb decision. And it's very easy to get worked up about that. And not that we shouldn't care about these things, but we shouldn't let it consume us. I think, especially as Christians, it's fun to talk about. It's great to talk about. I think it's good to be informed on these things. Good to have opinions on these things. But it's also good to remember that God is on the throne. God is sovereign over world affairs and world leaders. And I think that that's where Christians have their hope, is that the true authority on earth is in the sovereignty of the Lord and not elsewhere. So
as we close, I'll leave this. If we end up purchasing Greenland, are you going to move
to Greenland?
Yeah.
No.
Oh man, it'd be so cool.
Probably not. I will probably go there though. That would be fun.
Yeah, you won't need a passport.
Yeah, I will probably go there. Yeah,
that would be sick.
So that would be fun.
Oh, that'd be cool.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Scott and Brandon Show. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you found it beneficial and informative. Go ahead, if you don't mind, go ahead and subscribe to the show. Like the show. Those things help us out greatly. Leave a comment on the show. If you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, you can comment on it. We'll reply to you. Go ahead and you're also able to find us on Facebook and Instagram. It's not something that I talk about very frequently, but we're just at the Scott and Brandon Show. You can find us there as well. We post clips of the show throughout the week. And yeah, it'd be great. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And we will catch you all again next week.